Bristol, 300 years ago. Ships upon ships with their masts drawn, salesmen shouting excitedly, sailors rolling barrels of tobacco and large sacks of sugar towards the loading docks. Fast forward, and today Bristol's urban centre still largely revolves around its vibrant and colourful harbour. Here, former warehouses have been transformed into museums. The city has its own dedicated festival. And of course, there's the SS Great Britain. But there's also a secret Bristol, a place where hunters rule the skies and life is where you least expect it. A place where rare plants thrive and people and animals are never far apart. When winter turns to spring, the change is astonishing. In Lee Woods, plants that have been waiting underground shoot up in all their majesty and colour, basking in the warmth and light of longer days and serenaded by chirping and warbling from above. On the woodland floor, bluebells show off their radiant colour in large fields, a sign that spring is truly here. And bumblebees are busy, gathering nectar for themselves and collecting pollen for their larvae. Lee Woods flanks the south side of the Avon Gorge, a deep valley about 1.5 miles long. Over its entrance looms the Clifton Suspension Bridge, an engineering masterpiece from the late 1800s. The bridge towers 245 feet above the River Avon, after which the gorge was named. The river has one of the highest tidal ranges in the world, so boats using the gorge to get to Bristol can only pass through at certain times of the day. Beyond the bridge, steep limestone cliffs dotted with fossils rise above the north side, a popular attraction for adventurers from all around the country. While mineral quarries, now disused, hint at Bristol's economic past. Carry on down the river by boat past a plethora of plant life and shorebirds, and finally you reach the Bristol Channel. The Suspension Bridge, one of Bristol's most iconic landmarks, might be busy with human activity during the day, but once the sun has set, it becomes a playground for nighttime wildlife. In the deep, quiet night, urban foxes, among the most adaptable mammals in the world, come out to play. Doing what these animals do best, they scavenge for scraps left behind by people. Their nocturnal antics are no surprise. Urban foxes are often seen by people living in the city centre. Yet alongside them lives another, more surprising urban animal, the badger. Relying on their keen sense of smell, and less so on their poor eyesight, badgers only come out when they're sure there are no prying eyes. This is the first time a badger has been filmed here. The distinctive suspension bridge in the background makes its location unmistakable. Well fed and content, the badger returns to its set to rest, ready for another night out and about in the city. The summer season is the busiest time of year in the gorge. Both animals and people come out to take advantage of its special attractions. The woods have plenty to offer many different inhabitants, as food and shelter are in good supply. Yet it's the cliffs where most of the action takes place. This pair of peregrine falcons has been breeding here for over 15 years, and this year they have 4 hungry mouths to feed. The plants too are busy making the most of the warmer weather. But this is no ordinary wildflower meadow. It's late June, and the first of the summer's arrivals on Clifton Downs are the bee orchids. Though their numbers have declined recently, only 15 are in bloom this year. The limestone cliffs and warm southerly winds create a special microclimate, perfect for several rare species. The Avon Gorge is the only place in the UK where you can find the Bristol onion. It's the same with the Bristol rockcress. But even more unique is the Bristol whitebeam, a tree found nowhere else in the world. Hundreds of years ago, the gorge looked quite different. Wildflowers and grasses bloomed in vast quantities in these gullies, breathing colour and life into the fertile soils. But human intervention meant that scrubs and woodland took over. So now there's a project to restore this rich area back to its former glory. Six feral male goats were introduced into a special fenced-in area. Their hardy grazing, even on the most distasteful shrubs, and their ability to navigate such difficult terrain with ease will allow the extraordinary flora of the gorge to flourish once again. While the goats go about their business on the ground, there's a lot of activity in the skies above. The peregrine chicks have started fledging, and their screech-like begging calls for food will ring out over the gorge for several months. Learning to fly off a steep cliff doesn't come without its trials, and their newly discovered wing power takes some getting used to. All's well, this time at least. Juvenile peregrines look quite different to their parents. Unlike adults, their plumage is a creamy white rather than brown, and they have a white band along the back of their tail. Over the next 2 months, these 4 chicks will need to learn all the skills to survive on their own. And this includes hunting for pigeons. As the fastest birds in the world, they have some high expectations to live up to. Siblings will practice their skills by play fighting with each other, sometimes with several birds joining in the fun. As they become more skilled, eventually the time comes for the young birds to venture out into the world alone. This year something completely unexpected has happened. Less than a mile away, a new peregrine pair has been spotted attempting to nest. Despite failing first time around, they seem determined and are staying put, perhaps to try again next summer. Peregrines aren't the only skilled hunters in this area. Alongside their larger cousins, kestrels are able to thrive only inches away from people, many of whom are completely oblivious to this added spectacle. Kestrels are most often spotted hovering in the sky as they scan for mice and voles, using their ultraviolet vision and waiting to plummet to earth at exactly the right moment. Butterflies fly through the gorge in swarms as they migrate through. They stop over here to feed on their long journeys south, adding a hint of playfulness to the air. It's late July, and this year Clifton Downs has seen one of its longest summers, almost no rain for over a month. Dried grasses and scorched earth make this previously vibrant landscape resemble a savanna. Until, at last, the rains come in full force and shower the meadow with nourishment once again. House martins have used mud from the banks of the river to make nests for their chicks. This is their second brood, and they're busy feeding their chicks' ever-demanding mouths by catching insects in mid-air. In a month's time, dried out muddy lumps will be the only remaining evidence that they were ever here. Along the banks of sea mills, lapwings and redshank line up, ready to spend the winter here, fleeing to these milder climes from their territories further north. It's autumn and Lee Woods is in full swing. The tree's leaves have begun to turn bright yellow and brown, and the smell of the decaying forest floor fills the air. Fungi rise up out of nowhere. Now is their time to shine momentarily before it gets too cold. This is also the best time to see the most secretive of this woodland's creatures, the hazel dormouse. Tiny and completely nocturnal, it's a difficult animal to see. Hannah Broughton is doing vital conservation research by monitoring the population living here. And it's not just Hannah who plays a leading role in educating visitors about wildlife in the gorge. Ed Drewitt, an expert in peregrine behaviour, gives lectures and tours around his home patch. While Libby Houston knows the flora of the Downs like no other. What makes the Avon Gorge so unique is that its people and wildlife live side by side quite peacefully. People can enjoy water sports as raptors fly in the air above, or go cycling while animals rustle contentedly in the bushes below. With a little care and consideration, there's absolutely no reason why we can't all share one of the country's best kept secrets.